Okay, good evening, dear hearts, and welcome to another episode of the Inner Dance Show. And supporting us in our return to sacred flow this evening is the phenomenal Rachel Cheer. Now, Rachel is an ordained celebrant based in Perthshire. She specialises in creating bespoke rites of passage, holding healing spaces for individuals, and crafting community events for the spiritually curious. And I have to say that I've had the honour of being a participant on one of Rachel's retreats, and I've also had the pleasure of co-facilitating with Rachel when we did a super cool workshop on feet last year. I think it was last year already. So, Rachel, it's a real honour to have you on the show. Welcome. How are you today?
Thank you very much, Caroline. It's a real honour to be here. I'm good, thank you, this evening. I'm good.
Cool. So, I know that you're a very busy woman and you've got so many threads to your sacred work. And so for me, this is a real delight to get to hear more about sort of really what you get up to. And I know that ritual and rites of passage are of particular importance and interest to you. And so I'm curious if maybe you'd just like to give us a little sort of description of the work that you do for those of us who might not know what a celebrant is, and then we can just go from there. How does that sound?
Perfect, perfect. Yep. Yes, what is a celebrant? That's a good question. I suppose the easiest way to describe that is to say some of the more familiar roles that I conduct. So I conduct funerals, I conduct legal weddings. A celebrant really is just a holder of space for rites of passage, really. Traditionally, maybe people would be more familiar with the idea of a minister or something like that, but there's a growing trend now for people to really want to have bespoke and personalized ceremonies. And the celebrant role really is to fulfill that holder of space, but in a more personalized way.
Right. Beautiful. I like that. This holder of space. And that in itself just has its own vibrational quality to it. There's so much that I imagine that it takes to hold that honoring space the way that you do. So I'm curious, what does holding space mean for you?
Um, I think for me, it's about honoring the journey that people are on. So I have this concept in my mind always that when we hold space and we create ceremony, we are creating a pause in time. Um,
Mm,
and the pause is this liminal space where people really connect with where they've come from, but also where they want to go to. So
right.
it it is a pause, and it's this place we almost have to rewire our brains. So even if you think about a most basic ceremony like a wedding, which we're all familiar with, but people come in ostensibly as two individuals and they go out again as a couple. Now I know that's not, obviously it's not quite as basic as that, but it is that rewiring of your brain in that liminal pause to go, right, I'm now thinking about myself as part of a couple, and I'm, you know, thinking life will be different when I step out of this ceremony.
Mm,
So for me, it's always about holding the space for people to do that transformative work. And it could be anything from an individual forgiveness ceremony about some sort of childhood trauma to, a fairly sort of familiar kind of funeral ceremony that we might all have been to at some point. And that I really have a breadth and a depth to my work to sort of cover all of those things, because that is what life is about, all of those things.
yeah. That really resonated with me and stirred in me the sense of, well, I suppose the pauses in time was such an eloquent way of putting it, and the liminality, the qualities of the sort of third space, but something about, you know, the rewiring and repatterning that you were describing, it's like two individual brains almost becoming one. And I just had this image of the fusion of right and left brain hemisphere coming together through this rite of passage that, as you described, as the wedding.
Mhm. Yeah. And I often say I will always say to people, the more work we put in to preparing for ceremony, the more we will get out of it. And I think almost the preparation we take and the care we take approaching ceremony can almost be as important, sometimes more important than actually what happens in the ceremony. because
Yeah.
again, it's that rewiring process. And I have actually had clients before who have come to me because they want to do some sort of personal healing, but actually in the preparation for ceremony, they've actually healed themselves before we've even got to the ceremony. And I just think that's just so beautiful.
That is beautiful. Yeah, so again, it's a marker, isn't it? A journey that they've been on, and that actually what they thought was the journey, which was the ceremony, is actually the, I suppose, the honouring of the process, the completion of it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no right or wrong to any of it. And, we just always just have to be very intuitive and work with what's happening at that time energetically for people.
Yeah,
And I think that's what I like about it. There's nothing ever prescriptive with my work. We always start with a blank canvas and everything's person focused. So,
yeah,
you know,
gorgeous. It sounds like how you work really supports people to tap into their creativity.
hmm yeah, yeah, it does. And it's a different way of thinking about things. And I think often we're not very good at thinking about ourselves sometimes. We're very good at prioritizing other people's needs and wants and schedules. And I think especially these personalized healing ceremonies that I do, it's it's um it's like an opportunity or someone giving you permission to actually do a deep dive into yourself and what
Yes,
you need and what traumas you've had and what do you want, what outcome do you want from the ceremony, what do you want to be free of.
right.
So it's almost like giving people permission to do that work.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, my opinion is that there's a real lack of opportunity. There's a lack of ritual and rites of passage in our culture, and I know how important they are in perhaps more ancient cultures, indigenous cultures, and so here you are, sort of paving the way for this to be reclaimed.
hmm I think that people are nervous. We've especially in our culture, and we've sort of let all these things go, and now people are a little bit nervous
Mhm.
about, they might be a bit weird or wacky, or they don't understand, or is it a bit witchcrafty or some sort of black magic, and they get a bit nervous. But actually, intuitively, we know how to do these things. And I think people sometimes forget that the exchange of a wedding ring is a ritual. These sometimes these very basic things that people are familiar with, they are rituals. It's the word that sometimes scares them.
Yeah.
But sorry.
No, no, I was bumping into you there. Sorry. Keep going.
Just- I was just saying that we think about rituals as if we would think about the pictures in a storybook. So you have your words, but in a book, it's lovely to look at the pictures, and rituals are like pictures. They're images. They're very different. They speak to our brains in a very different way. They're often visual.
Mhm.
And I like to bring in the different senses as much as possible because we all process differently. And if we can appeal to all the senses with our rituals and our ceremonies, I think they sit in different places and they can sit in a deeper level. And what resonates with one person might not resonate with another. So I like to have a texture and different feel and different parts in the ceremonies to make sure, that we are really ticking all the boxes to make this work go as deep as possible for people.
Yeah. And it sounds like a way of animating creating a living ritual that's animated and full of life and all these, like you say, textures and layers, and it's very sensory.
hmm Yeah, I do think that rituals should be sensory really, because we've got words, we can do the hearing part, but having something that smells beautiful, that's got a texture,
Mhm.
that looks lovely, that we've got music in there. There's all these different senses, and also the ability to make up your own individual ritual is just beautiful. One that was coming into my mind there was, I did a beautiful Scottish Indian fusion wedding not long back, and we during the ceremony they got a jar and we made a love potion during the ceremony, and it was a combination of lots of different Scottish herbs and Indian spices, and of course all the herbs and spices have different meanings. So as they took it in turns to place the different plants into the vessel, we explored the qualities of those things, and we brought those qualities to the marriage. And then at the end, they had this completely unique love potion that they'd created during their wedding ceremony, which was a real fusion of, the heritage of the lands from which they came. And that was an example of one we just made up from scratch, but it was really beautiful to curate and to watch.
It sounds it. I'm really moved by that, and I have the image, well, of that act of blend and fusion, and how potent and moving that must have been for the couple to co-create this love spell, this love potion for themselves for their future. That's what a glorious idea.
Yes. Although I don't recommend too greatly the worry of using paprika near a white wedding dress.
Yeah, I imagine that there are some really phenomenally vibrant spices that could get blown in the wind towards a very gorgeous silk dress or something.
Exactly. We managed to avoid any disasters, but it was a nervous moment.
I imagine that you get a lot of variety in your work. Obviously everyone's so unique in their creativity. And do you have any
Mhm.
other examples that you might be able to share? Obviously, I appreciate there will be confidentiality, and you don't want to.
Yeah. Um, Goodness me, I'm just thinking. I mean, I think I am very blessed because I'm a very creative person, and I'm also often inspired by random things in the moment. So,
Yeah.
when I'm creating a ceremony with somebody, I will just, it might often be a word they say to me, or something that they like a color or a plant, and we just think, well, let's just bring that in, because they've already got a connection with it. Um, the one I was just popped into my mind actually is, I think you're aware, Caroline, I've got a big fabric floor labyrinth,
Yes.
um, and I had it made ostensibly to use for community events, which we do, and they're very beautiful. But I had a friend who wanted a very specific personalized healing ceremony. And we ended up using the labyrinth right in the middle as this kind of pivot point between the past and the future.
Mm.
Um, and she took all this stuff in that she wanted to leave, and she came out with all this new ideas and hope and things. It was that idea of using the labyrinth as this pivot point in the middle of a healing ceremony. I'd never done that before, and it was just amazing. And I just thought, you know, who knows where the inspiration comes for things, but we have to trust that if we have these ideas come in, well, I do, that they're there for a reason, um, and they'll work and they'll be powerful. And there is a lot of trust. I do have to have a lot of trust that when these ideas come through to me, that that they will be helpful to the individual or the couple.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like divine inspiration that you're in flow in these moments, receiving these messages and nudges to these creative practices. The word
Mm-hmm.
that came to me actually was mirror. There's something about the ritual or the rite of passage as a mirror to the person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yes, it's a good point. I hadn't really thought of it like that. I was actually thinking of a mirror ritual, um, where you can hold up a mirror next to, in a wedding ceremony, you could hold up a mirror next to the head of the person you're marrying, and then you see yourself standing next to them,
Oh wow.
um,
Yeah.
which is quite a powerful image. Um, that's what popped into my mind when you said mirror.
That's a great idea as well. Wow. I love
Yeah.
that you have this freedom to really just bring to life all of these ideas as they're emerging through your body. And yeah, what may I ask, what led you to the path of the celebrant?
um, I suppose I've always, since I was little, I've always been fascinated by, well, death, really. That was my
Hmm.
main thing. I mean, I always used to hang around in graveyards and things, and then I wanted to be an archaeologist, but that didn't quite work out. Then I became a museum curator, so that again is all about thinking about people and rites of passage and life and that sort of social side of things.
Yeah.
Um, and then I worked for 11 years for a children's hospice charity, which was just absolutely incredible. And this this focus on making the most out of a short life, and this emphasis on a really good death, and
Hmm.
the processes that go around that kind of, I suppose, formed the conduits in my mind to these kind of things. But the actual becoming of a celebrant, I literally was divine inspiration. I literally just sat there one day and went, I need to become a celebrant. and I didn't even really know what that was.
Right.
So it was very random, but it probably wasn't random. But in that moment, it felt very random. So that was the start of it, I suppose, in a more mainstream sort of way. I did training and I got into funerals and weddings and things in a sort of more mainstream sort of way. And then my own spirituality sort of merged with that. So personally, I have a pagan faith, and that I just the bringing nature in and different deities and all these kind of things just sits really beautifully for me alongside ceremony, alongside being creative, alongside using the resources you've got and being very person focused.
Mm-hmm.
So that it just sort of all naturally sat together. And then I was fortunate enough to be ordained last September with an amazing organisation called Open Sanctuary. And Open Sanctuary is really just a space for anyone who has a spiritual curiosity. So there's no set ideas about what you should believe or what you need to be into. It's just people sitting alongside other people who have a spiritual aspirational curiosity or different personal beliefs. So I feel really blessed to have been ordained through them, because I feel it really allows for that idea that we don't have to be stuck on one set of beliefs, and that idea of personal growth and things. And I can support anybody in any way. I don't have to say I can only support you if you have that belief or you have that
Mm-hmm.
belief. So yeah, I feel really blessed that my path to where I am now has just seemed to flow, and everything seems to be complementary, and all the work I am undertaking and I seem to get given is stuff that I'm really interested in rather than the mainstream. I've never been interested in mainstream. And I just feel very blessed, really.
But it sounds like you're doing really beautiful work and that this was always the path for you. It sounds like, everything led you to where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and what a joy to be, your way of being is your way of living.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. Yeah, I am my work. There's no doubt about that. I'm training at the moment to be a soul midwife. So that is like a death doula, an end of life practitioner, and it
Okay.
is my my ideal job at the end of this would be to be able to merge all my different skills. So I would love to meet someone who was dying, who wanted to be supported in that process, to carry them through a beautiful death process, to
Yes.
support the family to look after their body at home, or have maybe understand the different options when someone has died, and then to also create the funeral ceremony at the end. That is my ideal, is to carry a family through that whole process in a
Mm-hmm.
very holistic way, and very, I think, for me as a professional, I would feel a lot more connected. And I feel like for families that would be a beautiful process as well, because you're only dealing with one person.
Yeah.
um so yeah, that's where I want to get to.
Okay. It sounds like a very intimate journey.
Well, definitely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and tell me more about the soul midwifery. I know in my inner dances, I've had some messages that I've to support people to die well, and so I'm curious about death doula, and so it's wonderful to hear that you're on that path already, and yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's just about, in its most basic form. I mean, to be fair, soul midwives have existed forever. As long as anyone's been dying, people have sat with the dying. So,
Yes.
in its most basic role, we are just sitting with the dying. We're comforting them. We're holding their hand. Um, but the more you get into it, the more levels you can bring to it.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes one of the roles of a soul midwife is to be advocate for the dying person. So
Okay.
they are your friend. We call them your friend, and they're the person you are going to first and foremost be listening to. So not family, not anybody else. What does the dying person want? What do they
Okay.
need? So
Okay.
you are their advocate. Because at the times of death, obviously it's very stressful, and lots of other things can be happening, and people might think they know best what the dying person wants, but actually, what does the dying person really want?
Sure.
I think one of the other things that seems to me, which sits really nicely alongside ritual and ceremony, is that often people don't want to die because they get stuck and they can't release something, and they
Yes.
have an anxiety or a fear, and they get stuck on it and they can't release it and they can't allow themselves to die peacefully. So
Yes.
one of the roles of the soul midwife is to try and identify these things and to help the person move through them. There's a beautiful ceremony we do, an anointing ceremony, which releases fear.
Okay.
And it's just really beautiful. I mean, there's a beautiful book called Sacred Dying by Megary Anderson, and it's got hundreds of examples of beautiful soul midwifery in it. But if you can help the dying person to find the fear and release it so that they can die peacefully, I personally can't think of a greater honor.
No.
So that's what the soul midwife is there first and foremost, to listen to the dying person and help to facilitate what they need at that time in a way that's really person centered.
Wow. I'm hearing the potency of that ancient art form.
Definitely,
So
definitely. I
the
mean,
sorry, come in.
no, I was just going to say we it's I think it's really since the advent of the NHS that somehow death got taken away from us,
Yes.
and it got clinicalized and people were
Yeah.
putting fridges and things. But we know how to do this, really. We
Yeah. A
innately,
bit like
intuitively know
birth
how to
is
do it.
a bit like
Yes,
birth
same
as
as that.
well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the midwife greets you as you arrive and eases
Mhm.
you out.
And this
Beautiful.
is and this is the idea of the soul midwife, is that you're easing the soul out into the next world. So I suppose a soul midwife is maybe a slightly more spiritual version of a death doula, but
Yes.
it is sort of the same thing, really. But and because I work very spiritually and I am very spiritual, that's why that appealed to me.
Yes.
This idea of guiding the soul across.
Yeah.
Just and it takes all the for me, I feel it takes the fear away of death as well, because we always fear the unknown,
Yeah.
but the more you sit working with death, the less, to me anyway, the less scary it seems to become.
Absolutely. And I guess with rites of passage and what you're working with really is the practice of mystery.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's all mystery and it's all magic.
Yeah. Wow. I'm really moved listening to your work, Rachel. It's so important and
Hmm.
such a missing element, in the ordinary, every day. I just have a feeling that this is something that everyone needs. Um, I re-
Definitely.
I remember reading a book on about sound and vibration many years ago, and I can't remember her name. There was a woman who set up practices in hospitals in America where she would assist people in their death process by playing the harp, and they have these really intimate concerts to help that transition be as smooth and as peaceful as possible. And I always thought that
Mm,
was just what a beautiful way to go.
yeah, definitely. Music's very important,
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
goes into our brain in a different way.
yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I have to create my own inner dance soundscape from my own end. That's
Yeah,
on my
yeah.
my to-do list.
You'd be amazed how many times I've planned my own funeral, honestly. I've got funeral plans, death plans, after I've died plans.
Yeah.
It's quite fun.
Yeah, me too. Since I was quite young, I think I would like to be in control even from beyond the grave.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
There was something you were saying there about music as well. It was just making me think how important music is in ceremony.
yeah,
Um, we all think about what piece of music do people want to play when they're walking down the aisle, but it can take us to different places. And more, I've just
mm,
been putting music into ceremony, and long pieces. So you just sit there and you almost go on into a meditative space.
mm-hmm,
And you can do it with silence as well. But it's that allowing for a sacred space within the ceremony where you're not doing anything and you're not saying anything. Um, and sometimes it feels quite brave to do that when you first start out. You're like, we can't just all sit here in silence for 10 minutes, but we can, because it's held silence.
yes,
Or we can't
yes,
put a 15-minute piece of music on. We can. We absolutely can. And that's when the magic happens
yes.
every time. So the wisdom for me is just shut up, Rachel. Hold the space in silence.
And the wisdom emerges. But yeah, you're right, with music and, our neural pathways are firing up and connections are being made and insights are arising as our energies and sensations that's, as you say, it's the magic happens in this
Mm,
hell in this held pause, listening to
definitely.
like powerful music that obviously resonates and means something for those who have chosen that particular piece.
Hmm. And I mean, when I doing a ceremony, I do a lot as a forgiveness ceremony. It can be people forgiving other people, or it can be people forgiving themselves. And that one has three pieces of music in, and I will happily make suggestions. But it always fills me with joy when people go away and really think about what music they want in their own ceremony.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's never anything I've ever thought of. But this is all good. It makes me happy because I'm like, you've really thought about that. And I mean, I say this all the time. I'd rather that you pull my ceremony plan apart and make it your own, because
Yes.
then it will be much more powerful for you than if you just accept what I've given you.
Yeah.
So yeah, being advocate of your own journey, I suppose.
The composer almost,
Mm,
that's
yeah, yeah.
amazing. I'm curious, so, you'd mentioned earlier that it's the preparation really that holds the vibrational qualities of what's to come in the actual rite of passage. And I'm curious how you yourself prepare to show up to a ceremony any given day. Do you have your own rituals?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I suppose the most obvious one is, that preparation of your dress and you're being clean and you're getting dressed and putting makeup on and these things. So in that mindfulness, you're physically clothing yourself for ceremony. Um, for me as well, packing I tend to take a lot of stuff everywhere. There's, drums and singing bowls and endless things. That mindful preparation of bringing everything together into the bags and putting it in the car.
Yeah.
And then I'll often listen to music as well so I run women's circles as well. So when I'm setting those up, I'll put the music on that I picked for that ceremony. Again, it gets you into the right vibration for what's about to happen.
Hmm.
um so there's a lot of all that for me, and if it's a scripted ceremony, I will rehearse it several times as well, so that when I'm actually performing it, I'm very familiar with the ups and downs and the funny bits and things. So, everything feels very familiar when I'm in it. And I think that's important because I don't want to be overwhelmed or surprised by my own ceremony. Um, I need to be, very much present and understanding
Hmm.
what's happening to hold the space for the other person. And the other thing I do is I often wear a ceremonial cape. Um, and anyone that's worn a ceremonial cape will appreciate the fact that as soon as you put on a garment like that, you have to move differently.
Hmm.
It forces you to move slower and more mindfully. Um, so all these things, the putting on of the capes, the picking up of the things, the reading of the scripts, all these kind of things, they all just, again, they're little nudges to get you into that right space.
Yeah.
Um, and I suppose for me, that opening of that space, whether it be me personally just checking in with my spirit guides, or a much more overt opening of a sacred space, but that transition between the everyday and the ceremony is really important as well, that you go into that place so that you know that when you're in ceremony, it is a different space to when you're out of it.
Yes. Yeah. So every act from the moment you get up is a stepping further and deeper into that space, into relationship with that ceremony.
Hmm. And
And do you
equally, I have to, sorry, carry on.
know, I was curious if you have any sort of post ceremony rituals for yourself as well then.
That's what I was just about to say, yeah. So it's the reverse, really. It's the putting everything away. I have to put everything away.
Yes.
Um, just clearing down, and as you put the stuff away, you can sort of feel your energy returning to normal.
Yes.
And if it's been a particularly harrowing ceremony, sometimes I might choose to have a shower. Again, it's just that kind of cleansing and that taking of space.
Yes.
Um, and it is, anyone that does this kind of work knows that, if you're doing like shamanic ceremonies, all these kind of things, it's important to have space either side to process what's happened. And
Yeah.
I would say no, any ceremony is the same, really. It's important to have time to process. And people are very generous with what they share with me, but it often means I'm sort of carrying a lot of having listened to people's sort of traumas and difficult things. So I
Hmm.
do need to just let that sort of ebb away a little bit from me to make sure I'm not carrying that when it's not mine to carry.
Yes. Yeah. So your self-care, I mean, I'm hearing how much care and consideration goes into everything. In fact, every act is a mini rite of passage in its own way. And as is
Mm-hmm.
the cleansing, the carefully putting things back where they belong, the washing away that which isn't your task, isn't yours to carry. It's just a real, everything sounds like an act of love, a conscious act of love and care.
Mm-hmm. I mean, love is the most important thing that I would try to infuse into everything I do. I think that's always the headline, followed swiftly by integrity, really.
Yes.
Um, so if you've got those, I hope everything else naturally falls into place. I always try not to force anything. It just doesn't work if you're trying to force an idea or a thing. It's never going to work because that's not what's meant to be there energetically. So I suppose as I've got further down my journey, I've got more confident about understanding, what I've got, why I've got it with me. If I haven't got a thing, then that's because it's not meant to be there, this kind of thing, and going much more with the flow. And also having the confidence now to know actually the tool is me. And
Yeah.
actually, even if I'd somehow mysteriously, not that it would ever happen, forgotten all my stuff, that I could still hold that space
Yes.
um, for somebody. And actually, the bits and bobs are less important sometimes than actually the ability to just, energetically hold somebody.
Yes. Yeah. And what I'm hearing is because you're so in care for the ceremony and the people that you're holding that pause space for, that you're imbued with the intentions, the vibrations, as I mentioned, intimately how to hold space for that person. And so objects are not, you are the vessel, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I spend anybody that works like yourself in these kind of healing spaces, we know that we are that conduit, aren't we, between something bigger than us, um, just helping to direct that energy to the person that needs it when they need it. And
Yeah.
it is a blessing and it's a gift. And again, I've come back to feeling very honored that I found this and this is my work and it's me and I get to do it every day. It's just incredible.
Yeah. And I know that you've held a ceremony for yourself, haven't you? I know that you were maybe interested in telling us a little bit about your own
Mm,
personal ceremony. Maybe now
yeah,
feels like an okay time to do that.
absolutely. Yeah. So I wanted to, I'm always interested in pushing the boundaries slightly about what we talk about, what we're used to, just expanding my own mind and hopefully inspiring other people with just going a little bit further than maybe we're expecting. And I wanted to share a bit more of an unusual rite of passage. And I thought really I could only really share one that I'd written for myself personally because it's not fair to
Yeah.
share anybody else's. I wouldn't do that. But this was one I wrote for myself last year actually. And it's a perimenopause ceremony. Um, so I was feeling, that I got to this stage where my body wasn't doing what I was expecting it to do anymore, and I recognised, as did the doctor, that this was a perimenopausal stage in my life. And I thought, goodness me, we're still not very good at talking about menopause, so. Perimenopause is right down the list there, but I thought, no, this is really, it felt personally for me really important to acknowledge that rather than just battling on and feeling glum and miserable and feeling out of control. As like, this is, women have all these rites of passage in our lives, all these points of change. And I thought I'm going to feel much better mentally about adjusting to this change if I make myself up a ceremony.
Beautiful.
So do you want me to share what I did?
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah, I think we all would.
Fantastic. Um, So I'll read you sort of the plan, and then I've got some reflections that I wrote afterwards as well. So hopefully I can take you on the journey a little bit. So when I open any ceremonial space for myself personally, I open the different directions. So I've just taken some notes here about what I did. So when I opened the East, I particularly connected with the quality of connection and movement, and that was between the stages of womanhood. For the South, for the fire direction, I focused on self-love and the idea of rebirth. For the water in the West direction, I wanted to give attention to Mother Moon and her guidance on phases and emotions. And in the Earth in the North direction, I wanted to call on the wisdom of all my female ancestors. Also the idea of seasonality in the plants and the animals, and the idea of flow and change. And in the centre, I invited in Great Mother. I wanted her to bring me empathy, understanding, and perspective. So that's how I opened my space. I was sitting on my bed next to my altar. It was a bit impromptu. I'd written the plan, but I had not really decided when I was going to do it. And I can't remember what happened. There was nobody else in the house. And I just thought, now is the moment. So I just did it. So after I'd opened the space, I'd written myself this invocation to Goddess. So personally, a Goddess is my main deity. So this is what I'd written. Beloved Goddess, I call on your nurturing presence now as I acknowledge this liminal place of perimenopause. My bones ache and my joints are sore. I need to rest more and my mind is fuzzy. Yet I also glimpse in this enforced stillness the growing gifts of intuition, foresight, and deep connection with you. This journey is long and deep. It asks me to look inward and to undergo a death on a shamanic soul level. This place is a threshold as I stand at the foothills of the next phase of my life. 1 foot in mother, 1 foot in crone. What a privilege to be aware of the magic of the journey. Please help me to honour this stage, to see its charms and listen to the messages of its challenges, to respect the ever-spinning spiral that is a woman's life, my life. Support me now as I undergo this rite of passage today. Blessed be. So that felt really powerful to write that invocation and to deliver it to Goddess. And then I took myself on a shamanic journey to the lower realms, which I will tell you about in a moment because that comes up in the reflection piece at the end. And then I wrote myself a mantra to repeat 3 times, and it was this: I am still beautiful, I am still capable, I still bring worth to the world, I embrace change, I am grateful for the wisdom afforded by age and experience. After this metamorphosis, can't speak, metamorphosis is that word, I will fly with gorgeous butterfly wings. So I repeated that 3 times to myself as well. And then I'd made myself up in the true Rachel style, a completely unique ritual. So I made myself my own homemade snow globe, which was a pint of water with a little fairy that I dropped into the bottom, a little metal one, you know, the ones that have the enamel wings. My friend had given it to me. And then I put glitter in the top, biodegradable glitter. And the idea was that I wanted to stir all the glitter up, and then I wanted to watch as this little fairy, this little woman that was me, emerged from the haze of the glitter. And it felt really powerful to just sit there watching all these little sparkly little pieces just descend down all over the fairy, and then emerge. She still emerged from the storm, and she was still beautiful, and she had a little bit of glitter on the end of her nose. And whilst I was doing that, I had a song on called Deep Calls to Deep by Ayla Schaefer, and the words in it were just really powerful. I listened to it again the other day in preparation for this interview, and I was just like, you know, that song is so amazing. So I did that, and that lasted for about 15 minutes, and none of this was rushed. It was all very slow, very mindful. And then the last bit I did was some pampering, because, you know, we're rubbish at self-care as women. We often just don't think about ourselves at all. So I had brought some almond oil to do hand massage in the ceremony. So that was what I kind of done very loosely, and then I closed the circle again. But I'll read you my reflections because I think that's probably the more meaningful bit. So this ceremony was a little impromptu, but I felt experienced enough to quickly grab what I needed and press on. It also felt timely as the GP had just confirmed that all my challenging physical symptoms were perimenopausal. I lit 2 candles on my altar and some lavender incense chosen for peace, and the association in my mind with the purple or lilac colour being a crone colour. I called in the directions as per my notes, and then did my invocation to Goddess. It's a while since I've done a ceremony at my altar, and I'd forgotten how powerful the experience is. The shamanic journey came next. As I stood by the tree, there were quite a few of us. My goddess Maka, my guides, hare, dragon, and wolf, and the Kaliak. I hadn't expected the Kaliak, so that was a lovely surprise. But who better than the original crone to take me on this journey? And take me she did, whilst the rest remained by the tree. And as we headed into a dark entrance, I very much had the sensation of re-entering the birth canal. We headed down steep steps that were like a tentacle, like that of an octopus. I felt that the suckers were there to make it hard going, like the experience of menopause. Then we went sliding down a blacker and blacker tunnel. It was quite unnerving, but Kaliak was right behind me and seemed fine, so I trusted to the journey. Eventually we landed in a bright crystal cave with gold nuggets on the floor. Kaliak was tired, so sat by where we had landed. I walked round the edge of the room, not ready to fully enter. It was certainly a cave of jewels, beauty, and wisdom, the reward that awaits after menopause. Also a quiet place to sit. This definitely symbolised post-menopause. The roof opened to reveal the night sky and stars. I received the message that I will find a deeper star connection post-menopause. It was also very peaceful. There were spirals on the wall, which I have seen before when I have worked with the Kaliak. I had a happy, contented feeling. And as I came back full circle round the golden cave, back up to where we came out from, Kaliak took my hand, and the meeting of arms barred the way back up. It seemed to say, once you reach this place, you cannot return. And I wondered how I would actually return. But the Kaliak suddenly flew back up the tunnel, taking me in her flight too. She hopped up the tentacle steps. Then, outside the tree, we all had a hug with the spirit team. The bit I didn't understand was the octopus tentacles. However, I've looked up the spiritual meaning of octopus, and it is flexibility, creativity, intelligence, and psychic ability. Sounds good to me. After the journey, I repeated my mantras 3 times. That felt powerful and emotional. The self-constructed snow globe and music was interesting, mainly because the glitter just floated. However, with a vigorous stir, it was encouraged to settle. Whilst I listened to the angelic and deeply moving song, I watched the pink flecks descend down. As the fairy emerged from the storm, she was embellished with rosy sparkles and looked even better for her experience. She even had one on her face, a wondrous beauty spot. So the storm can improve us, not necessarily overwhelm us. The last part was the arm and hand massage. I poured too much oil and was briefly cross with myself. And then I realised the whole point was not to scrimp on the self-care. And I ended up having to have an arm and leg massage too to use up all the oil. Again, a reminder to do more, not less, self-care. The circle was closed. All in all, an excellent ceremony. And I'm just wondering who else might benefit from it.
Oh, Rachel, thank you so much. That was really moving and powerful, and I feel honoured to bear witness in this pause in time for your ceremony.
Thank you. You and the listeners are the only people really that have heard that, because apart from one other person who's read it, so it's actually really beautiful to share it.
And really beautiful to receive that. You know, I'm hearing how much love you pour into your rites of passage for other people, how you hold those pauses in time for others. And I don't know, it just felt like that's what we were doing for you in our own way.
Thank you. I feel that power from everybody. So thank you very much for anyone who is listening.
Yeah, and just so how generous of you to share such a private process. Thank you.
Mm, you're welcome. And as I say, I think for me, it's always about trying to inspire other people because I'm
Yes,
definitely not the only person going through this.
yeah, and
Um,
I feel inspired. I can think of a million and one ceremonies that haven't happened in my life, but I would really like to. And within that, a handful that actually need to be undertaken. So I'm so inspired to actually give sort of conscious thought, effort, and planning to that. And I can imagine that the listeners who are present with us just now and the future listeners will also be inspired to really carefully consider what rite of passage they need to create for themselves or reach out to someone as phenomenal as you, Rachel, to support them in co-creating an
yeah,
honoring journey.
yeah, and I mean, I'm very happy to give people advice. You know, they just want to have a chat about some ideas for themselves. You know, this is what I do. When I became ordained, one of my roles is a community minister, and really, you know, I spend a lot of time just talking to people. It sometimes doesn't feel like work, but it is actually my work. It is talking to people. It's connecting with people. It's, you know, just inspiring people to take on their own self care and understand their own journey. So yeah, if you want to have a chat with me, I'm very happy to have a chat with you.
Well, I think that's definitely an offer that should be taken up. And I'm curious, Rachel, where's the best place to get in contact with you? And do you do work online? Do you hold ceremonies online?
So I have a website which is www.hopeceremonies.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. If you just look up my name, Rachel Cheer, that's CHEER, like cheers. Um, yes, so that's how to get hold of me. Do I do ceremonies online? Yes, I do. It's not my favourite way to work, I have to say, because obviously
Hmm.
energetically it's tricky. But I mean, I held loads and loads of women's circles online during the pandemic. And, you know, there's pros and cons to all these sorts of things. Obviously, you can be in your own space that you want to be in. You know, I can work with you if you're a long way away. You know,
Yes.
we can create things. I mean, I have done lots of ceremonies online, certainly.
Yeah.
And I've done like did a spring equinox one online once, and everyone brought an egg and painted it. So yeah, there are ways to work around it. It's not the ideal way to work, but it certainly can be done if that's what's required and needed.
Sure. I guess I'm just wondering about people who are really in resonance with you, Rachel, that might not be geographically close by, that there might
Yeah,
be another way to do this sort of sacred work together.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I mean, as I've probably already alluded to, it's always starting with a blank canvas. So
Yes.
if, you know, the blank canvas, the first thing is this needs to be an online ceremony, that's what we work with.
Yeah, that's the space.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So we're coming to the last 10 minutes of the show, Rachel, and I know that you'd mentioned a book earlier, Sacred Dying, which I'm going to Google after this. But I'm
Mhm.
wondering if you have any other books on any subject that you could recommend to us listeners who are bookworms and just like
Well,
to
yeah.
know what inspires you.
This is like asking me to pick my favourite child, Caroline. Um, well, I'm going to just mention the one that's sitting here on my desk because I seem to waffle about it all the time, but it is just really helpful. It's called The Pagan Book of Living and Dying,
Okay.
by Starhawk.
Oh, yes.
It's yeah, it's just got. I mean, I suppose in a way it's a bit like my Bible, but it's got just so many different things in it, which I seem to reference all the time. It's got little rituals and stories and poems and meditations in it, that you can use for so many different things. It's just one of those brilliant books, and it's got, you know, all these post-it notes sticking out. I've got it out on my desk because I have been asked to open the space for our soul midwife training tomorrow, and I was like,
Oh,
there'll be
wow.
something in the pagan book of living and dying because everything's in the pagan book of living and dying. um and you know, it just, oh, I just really love it. I just really love it.
Love.
And if you're musical, it's got song, you know, like there's music in there you can play. I'm not musical, sadly. um Exercises, real life stories, lots of aspects of death that, you know, are difficult. It's
Mm-hmm.
got abortion in it. It's got suicide. It's got everything in there, you
Okay.
know, to help ease people through these really difficult things in a really beautiful and loving way. So that's my recommendation.
Well, I'm just wondering, as you're describing Starhawk's book, when you're going to write your book.
Well, that's an interesting question. Um, I would quite like to write a book. I just can't decide what it's going to be about. But presumably, it'll probably be about
All of
rites of
it.
passage.
I imagine it's going to be all of this. Well, I do hope so, because it's definitely it, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
I
thank you
do
for
like
that.
writing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that comes through for sure. Wonderful. And I always ask, do you have any words of wisdom, either your own or that you've received in your lifetime from someone else that has stayed with you and has helped you through, I don't know, tough times or inspired you in some?
Mm, that's a good question. I haven't thought about this too much. Yeah, I suppose it's qualities really that I always come back to every time. And the two qualities that I try and just have as my headline and to see everything through. One, I've spoken about integrity, and I think that is really
Mhm.
important because
Yes.
integrity is about doing the right thing when no one's watching and being consistently doing the right thing for the right reasons. So I feel that's an important quality and it brings a consistency. But the other one is judgment. And it's something I did a big deep dive into when I was training to be ordained. And I feel of all the qualities, trying to walk through life without judgment is really beautiful. It takes away so many boundaries because if you meet a person or go into a situation and you're going, I'm not judging this, you don't have to have opinions. So it
No.
actually becomes a much less stressful way to walk through the world.
Mhm.
But it also opens stuff up because as soon as you have a judgment about anything, you've put ideas in your own mind. Well, this person does this and they're probably going to do that. And you've put boundaries up. And I find that very unhelpful in my work. I need people to trust me and I need them to be authentic with me. So I have to really try, and I'm only human obviously, but to sit in this place of non-judgment as far as possible
Yes.
in order to genuinely open a space up for people.
Yes. Yes. There's something about the dissolution of boundaries to create sacred thresholds.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I love that integrity, doing the right thing when no one's watching. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm going to borrow that. I, I, I will name you in it though, because I have
I
integrity.
to be fair, I think I stole that from somebody else, but that is what integrity is, isn't it? It's doing the right thing when nobody's watching.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Being true to ourselves, not for any other reason other than that's who we are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Rachel, I can't believe we're coming towards the end of the show. It's been such an honor. It's been such a rite of passage, actually. I feel like we've moved through some spaces and stages in this last hour and come almost full circle. There's been
Mhm.
definitely some sacred geometry. That's how it's felt to be holding space with you today. And I know we have some listeners live at the moment, and I just wondered if anybody might like to come in and ask Rachel a question, just to take the opportunity to bring your voice into the space in these final moments before we sort of finish off the recording. And equally, it's okay if everyone wants to remain in silence.
Hi, I had a
Yeah.
question.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
Oh, hello. I was just wondering the practice of getting in the flow, people that kind of take it upon themselves to force it to happen via, maybe artificial means versus something just without even thinking about it, being present and then having that, manifest things. So what do you think about, I mean, in other words, it's like artificial divination versus natural divination. I
Mm.
was curious
Yeah,
about how people think about that.
that's an interesting question, isn't it? And I suppose you have to ask the question, if you decide you want to go and listen to a meditation, are you taking yourself artificially off and someone's giving you words? So I think, you know, sometimes we do need a bit of help to take ourselves off to different places because we're busy humans and our minds have got a million things racing. So, you know, sometimes we do need to find a little methods for, you know, triggering that place in ourselves, or sometimes we need people to give us permission to be in that place. But I
Yes.
suppose really you can only know yourself, really, can't you, whether you are really authentically sitting in that place or not, and that could vary from day to day and hour to hour. It's a good question.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for the response, Rachel. I guess I was just sitting with there's something about intentionality, which is for me really central to ritual. That
Mm,
that we're working with a conscious intention, and sometimes we have to stimulate that by whatever way works.
yeah. And that you're right, we haven't used the word intention, but it's absolutely critical before you do any ceremony or any rituals to know clearly what your intention is. So thank you for reminding me about that, Caroline.
It was my intention all along.
Can
And
I just quickly come in before the end of the show? I
of
just
course,
wanted to say thank you, Caroline, for opening the space for Rachel. It's been an amazing show. I've really enjoyed it. Just a quick question for Rachel. Where do
Mhm.
you do your ceremonies?
Yeah, good question. Thank you very much. Well, it varies. Obviously, some funerals and weddings tend to happen in set venues. I work a lot in my own home, to be honest, more and more so now. I hold a lot of women's spaces in here and healing ceremonies because it's somewhere I'm comfortable. Practically, I don't have to move about. It's very peaceful in my home, and people love coming into my home. So I will often do that. But equally, I work outside a lot as well. So I will say to somebody, you will intuitively know where you want to do this ceremony. And that is how we start the process of the where will it happen.
yeah.
Um,
And Rachel, I know you're based in Perthshire, but do you travel? Would you travel somewhere else in Scotland or the UK, or is
yeah,
it do you stay
yeah.
close to?
Oh, no, us celebrants are mostly nomadic. Um, you know, obviously there's a cost implication. So there, I do have a mileage rate if it's over 50 miles from my house, just obviously because I have a mortgage to pay like everyone else. But absolutely, I am always happy to travel. So, and you know, if someone really needs me to work with them, absolutely, that's a real gift to be asked. So I will happily travel. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that, Rachel. Thanks for the question, Dolly. Just wondering in the final minutes if anyone else would like to come in, or if this feels like the time to finish up. Well, Rachel, I think we might have come to a natural end then. So just on behalf of, well, of myself and Holistic Radio, just so deeply grateful for your time and how you have held space with us in this last hour. It's been a real gift to hear you bring the threads of your sacred work together and to really paint a beautiful, phenomenal picture of the work that you do and how you help so many people in these very profound and sacred ways. So, thank you very much. So, I'm just going to say good evening, dear hearts. It's been another phenomenal show and look forward to next week. And have a great evening and sweet lucid dreams when they come. Okay, thanks. Bye bye.